we have a podcast.
Diving deep into all things Texans, both on and off the field. Here's Sean Pendergast and Pro Football Hall of Famer, the General, John McClain. Welcome to Houtopia.
Hey everybody, welcome in. It is the third and final episode of the week, the Houtopia Football Podcast. This means we are ready for week 2. The Indianapolis Colts coming to town for the first home game of the DeMeco Ryans era. We're going to get you ready for that. We're going to take a look around the league and the sports world in general with some Forrel or Fugazis a little later on in the program. If you're new to the podcast, you'll get the hang of it pretty quickly. But if you are new, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. I'm Sean Pendergast, one half of Payne and Pendergast, Sports Radio 610 in the morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Myself and Seth Payne, joined as always by my good friend, the Hall of Famer, our senior columnist at sportsradio610.com, John McClain, with a newly minted microphone. John, give the people some of those dulcet tones. How you feeling today?
Would you like for me to sing a song?
Let's do it. I used
to be a singer in a rock and roll band back in high school.
Shut up. Are you serious?
No, I am. Yeah. I can't say what the name of it was because
you can. It's a podcast.
I can't either.
Really?
I wouldn't say it on a podcast. People have been asking me in Nashville for 27 years. I've had bellhops, valets. People say, so what's the name of your band? I won't tell anybody. And I said, yeah, right.
What would it get you canceled? Is that the deal, John?
It might get me canceled. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'll tell you off the air what.
You can tell me later. Now I'll see you at the game on Sunday. You can tell me then. I'll just make sure it's not near a hot mic.
Yeah, not near a hot mic. I don't want to get in a jam like that BuffaloBills.com reporter did this week.
I saw that. All right. So we'll do a 6-pack that'll get us ready for the game specifically in just a little bit. But just general thoughts now on the Houston Texans and where we are, John. One game and several practices in. I guess this specific to this game, before we get into the 6-pack part of it, as far as news and notes go, the safety position right now is a big problem for the Texans. No Jalen Petrie, no Jimmy Ward at practice so far this week.
Yeah, well, first of all, just the overall atmosphere of the first home game under DeMeco Ryans. There's a lot of excitement, a sellout. They're guaranteed of selling out the first 2 home games. The second one against the Steelers, J.J. Watt Day. So they should have a really good advantage because the Colts don't have a lot of fans that travel. They don't have a whole lot of fans here, so it should be a predominantly Texans crowd. Atmosphere should be electric. And then I was asked on an Indianapolis station, should the Texans want him to run the ball or throw the ball? And I said, well, if you don't have either starting safety, you don't want him throwing the ball down the field. So you want to have him run like Lamar Jackson did. Even though he had one good run, he didn't hurt them overall. The run defense improved significantly. So I think safeties, George Fant's supposed to play at right tackle. So I'm guessing, you missed your 2 safeties. Plus, they're both captains.
Yeah.
Ward with a hip injury and Jalen Petrie with a bruised lung. That's got to affect you, even though you have 2 veterans like M.K. Stewart and Eric Murray as backups. But, it's early in the season. Petrie started every game last year. I can't remember him not starting a game at Baylor. So this would be a really big deal for him to have to miss a game.
This is new territory for sure for him, John. I guess, and among others on the injury report, there were several guys that were limited in practice this week who I guess would be playing now. Now, they sent Noah Brown and Hassan Ridgeway to the IR. So those guys are going to be gone for at least a few weeks now, which John Mechie's back at practice, Xavier Hutchinson. I mean, now, John, Noah Brown was one of the few older guys in that receiver room. The pressure and the focus now is really probably heightens on Nico Collins and Robert Woods as much as anything, but they can't just get by with just 2 guys running patterns out there. Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson, and I would imagine we're going to get our first look at John Mechie III this weekend, if indeed the limited practice he's been getting is an indicator that he could play this weekend.
I want to see Tank Dell get the ball more. When they go to 3 wide receiver sets, he should be outside. Woods can play inside. Collins is better outside. Collins and Woods, I had no issue with anything they did. 6 catches each. Woods would had 4 first down catches, 1 wiped out because of a penalty, but he was very reliable in a pressure situation for him, for C.J. Stroud. And then Collins, if he could play like that every game, 6 for 80, he'd be making some money. And but Tank Dell, we want to see him get the ball in his hands more than 3 times as a receiver and once as a punt returner.
Yep, I totally agree with that. John, just you talk about the excitement, and I agree with you. I think the atmosphere is going to be really, really good on Sunday. I hope people are in their seats early so that people aren't snapping pictures 10 minutes before the game saying, here's the Texans crowd in week 2 against the Colts at the opener, because eventually it is going to fill up. And I'm with you. I think it's going to fill up mostly with Texan fans. To me, I think about, boy, if they're able to win this game, we could have a game in week 3 with the Jag, whether the Jags win or lose this weekend. If they win, that means the Jags are undefeated, and that game will have some juice because you're going against an undefeated division leader. If the Jags lose this week, which they play the Chiefs, right? What are you laughing at?
You're going to say a battle for first place?
Mathematically, it will be.
You're
actually,
right.
Yeah, mathematically. John, and look, I have probably, as a defense mechanism over the last 2 years, based on the 2 head coaches we've had, very nice individuals, beautiful human beings, don't inspire me at all. So probably as a defense mechanism, I've not allowed myself to dream these types of dreams even early in the season. But DeMeco Ryans is going to allow me to do this. If they're able to beat the Colts this weekend, the Texans are 1-point underdogs. This game is basically a coin flip in the eyes of the odds makers. We'll make our predictions in a little bit. That will have the most juice on a regular season game probably since the opener of 2020 against the Kansas City Chiefs on Thursday night. I am not afraid to say that right now. Yes, you can laugh and cackle all you want into your brand new Yeti microphone, John. But I will allow myself to get appropriately excited about week 3 should they win this game in week 2.
Well, they should win this game in week 2. They're favored. By the way, Sean,
they're not favored anymore, John. The line is Colts -1 now. Yeah, the line moved.
Wonder why. I mean, what happened to the Colts that all of a sudden made them be the favorite? But
they had a bunch of people bet on them. That's what happened. Yeah. The money came in on them.
I'm guessing that you guys know this, and you and Seth have been talking about it. Greg Grissom, the president, asked me to promote this. They want fans in their seats by 11:30 because they're going to honor DeMeco. And I'm guessing that would be a really cool video. DeMeco will be on the field and then in the locker room. But they want the fans to be in there by 11:30. They've done everything they can to get fans in there earlier. They just don't do it. They've even had, remember, some kind of announcements in the parking lots. Maybe they need to open the gates sooner and let them tailgate earlier so they'll come in. But DeMeco will be honored, and they're hoping that people will be there by 11:30. And yes, if they could win this game, it would make it more exciting when they go to Jacksonville. And then if they could start 1-2, I think that would be plenty to ask. But they've done well against Jacksonville going back to 2017, and maybe they could surprise some people and do well early in the season.
Yeah, you got the Steelers at home. They don't look to be, at least one game in, they don't look up to be all that hot. And then you got 4 NFC South teams in a row. John, I am going to dare to dream right now, and I'm not going to let you suck the joy out of this streaming that I'm doing, all right? Hey, what exactly – we'll do the 6-pack here in a second. What exactly does that mean that they're honoring DeMeco at 11:30? Like, what are they doing? What's it for?
Well, I'm guessing just his home opener. I'm guessing they're going to have probably an extensive video.
Okay.
Talking about his career as a player and his probably, on the field, off the field, everything he's done. And that's all I know.
Okay.
They said, we're going to honor DeMeco. Well, they can't do anything else. They can't stop the proceedings, and he's not going to be worried about that. He's worried about the Colts.
Right.
So that's what I'm guessing, but they want people in their seats by 11:30 if possible.
Okay, yeah, that's what that was my question. Like, is DeMeco part of this, or is he's got a game to coach? So I would hope that he's not part of it.
He's not part of it.
Yeah, okay, I'm cool with them doing it. I'm honestly sad I'm going to miss it. I'm going to still be out in Bud Light Plaza or outside of Bud Light Plaza doing the pregame show. So I'm kind of bummed I'll miss it. But I'm guessing whatever it is will get distributed on social media post haste as soon as the game kicks off. All right, John. So let's do our 6-pack. Let's do our pregame 6-pack. We do this before each game. 6 people, storylines, or aspects of this game that people need to know going into this game. And then you and I will give our prediction for this week 2 matchup with the Colts after we do the 6-pack. But John, you're the Hall of Famer on this show, so the honor is yours, Your Honor.
Thank you, Sean. I'm going with the obvious with C.J. Stroud versus Anthony Richardson. I have a column on sportsradio610.com about their relationship, how vital they are. And we should be watching these two guys twice a year for a long time. And so I'm going with Stroud. It's interesting. All these analytic sites, I saw one that had Stroud ahead of Richardson and Bryce Young after the first game. I read one this morning that had Stroud third. I don't know how I could add him third behind Bryce Young. I can agree Richardson because he accounted for 2 touchdowns. It was number one, but it's amazing. The fact is, I thought Stroud's performance, and I know you feel this way too because we've talked about it, was encouraging. There was no reason to look on that performance and go, wow, he's going to struggle. Struggling is what happened to Joe Burrow and Josh Allen and some of those other veteran quarterbacks. But I thought he was very poised. And he's playing his first home game. Crowds don't bother him. He played at The Ohio State University. But being at home, the adrenaline will be flowing. He'll have some butterflies. And the best thing about the first game, besides getting rid of the ball quick, was he was accurate. I went back and watched it, and I know you did too. He had a lot of sideline routes in which the corners thought they were going to break on the ball and get a pick six, and it arrived to the receiver just ahead of the corner. And the Colts will be trying to do that too. And of course, what Stroud's got to do better is in the huddle, getting the play called, get them to the line of scrimmage because they don't want to be out of timeouts with 8:14 left in the first half.
Yeah, John, fun fact. This is the second time in league history that 2 quarterbacks age 21 or younger are facing off in an NFL game. Mariota and Winston back in 2015 was the first time. Yeah.
That's a great stat.
Thank you. Yeah. Two really young quarterbacks, 2 faces of the future of the league. My first one, John, if you're going to go Stroud, I'm going to go Will Anderson with my first one here in the 6-pack. He had the most impactful game, I would say, of any rookie on the defensive side of the ball, probably him and Jalen Carter. Carter was really good for the Eagles. Will Anderson is working next to far fewer great football players than Jalen Carter is in Philadelphia, the defending NFC champs. I think keeping Anthony Richardson in the pocket, if they can, is going to be a big factor in this game, not letting him get loose for some of those Lamar Jackson kind of plays. Will Anderson was really good across the board in his debut, John. It wasn't just him getting Lamar Jackson on the ground and applying pressure in the passing game. He was pretty disciplined in the run game too. So Will Anderson continuing to build on what he did in week 1 is my first one.
Sean, it bothers me because the official stats that are in the game book afterward, they don't account for hurries. So you have to use an analytics site. And I can't remember which one I saw said he had 6 hurries. Brian Baldinger had a great analysis of every play he had. Great job. He just loves him. So Anderson is off to a great start for a guy's favored to be NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'm guessing it'll be him and Jalen Carter neck and neck.
What's your next one, John?
I think my next one is going to be back to offense of Dameon Pierce. They got to get the ball to him more. They got to run the ball more. That was not the kind of 49ers offense we expected to see. So I think they're going to really work hard to emphasize the run. I think we'll see Bobby Sloak's play calling be a little more balanced. And Pierce needs to have a good game if they're going to win this game.
Yeah, I think so too. Running the football, they just could not run the football against Baltimore. Operating with a lead would be good, in this game. I think, the team that gets the lead. And Indianapolis was not a good running team as well in their week 1. They scored more points than the Texans did, but outside of some design runs by Anthony Richardson, they couldn't get anything going on the ground. Deion Jackson, I think, had like 13 carries for 14 yards or something like that. He had a couple that he popped, but they got called back because of penalties. But that's still an issue, So either way, the running game was not very good. My next one, John, in the 6-pack is going to be the Texans linebacking core. And I'm going to talk, Christian Harris, Denzel Perryman, and now Henry To'oTo'o, who's been moved up to first string. They love Henry To'oTo'o. They've got to be real disciplined, I think, when it comes to Anthony Richardson, and they've got to hit Anthony Richardson. I think that's one of the biggest keys. He had to go out a couple of times in that opener against the Jags because he's fairly careless with his body right now. I don't think he realizes he's playing against grown men now. I think I heard a story. Trevor Lawrence even came up to him after the game against Jacksonville and said, "Hey man, you may want to handle your business a little bit differently out here in the run game, which I say to Trevor Lawrence, why are you giving him advice that's going to help him beat you down the road? Stop doing that, Trevor Lawrence. It's not benefiting anybody in the AFC South that you do that. But I think if I'm DeMeco Ryans, John, and I'm doing the bullet points on the whiteboard for this game, my number one bullet point is you hit Anthony Richardson every opportunity that you get.
Something very interesting. Pro Football Focus had Toa and Anderson rated 4th and 5th of all the rookies in the NFL in their debut. And I thought it was really interesting that Toa was right ahead of Will, because I thought Will played a great game, and I didn't hear Toa's name called a lot. But my third one is going to be the most important one in this game because it controls so much. The offensive line. They got creamed in the first game. Stroud's running for his life. They couldn't run the ball. If George Fant's back at right tackle, that means they don't have to change 2 positions again. Josh Jones will go back to left guard. But they've got to play better. You'd think with a game under their belt they would. And that's why it's easier for linemen to run block than pass protect. That's one reason I think they'll come off with a determination to run the ball. A problem, Sean, besides the injuries, Indy's defensive line has pulverized the Texans' offensive line for quite a while. Made a lot of big stops, forced turnovers. It's a good defensive line. It's a good front seven, probably right up there with Baltimore.
Yep, they are. The Colts are not a great football team. Their front seven on defense, when it's fully healthy, and their defensive line is really, really good. DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart are excellent football players. Along those lines, my last one for the pregame 6-pack, and then we'll do some for real or Fugazis after that. Along those same lines, mine is Dalton Schultz. Really the tight ends in general, Dalton Schultz and Tegan Quitoriano. But mostly Dalton Schultz. He's the one that coming into this season, we'd seen what a security blanket he had become for Dak Prescott in Dallas. And I think, especially if CJ Stroud is under siege in this game, which he could be, given the offensive line issues and the fact that the Colts do have some guys that can apply some pressure in that front seven, the ability to get the ball out quickly, the ability to have a security blanket and use a security blanket. Schultz has been underwhelming, John, since he got here. The preseason, he didn't do much. He had a miscommunication down near the goal line in a preseason game, I think against the Saints. And then he was underwhelming in the first game of the regular season last week against Baltimore. I think he just had a couple of catches for maybe 4 or 5 yards. It was not much. If this offense is going to take a step here and go from being one of the worst in football to at least being one that teams have to be somewhat concerned about. I don't have delusions they're going to be a top 10 offense anytime soon, but Dalton Schultz is going to need to be a part of that. So he's mine. I think Dalton Schultz is a guy. If we were doing the player upgrade like we do with you on the pregame show, my player upgrade, a player that needs to play a whole lot better this week than he did last week or than he's been playing, is Dalton Schultz.
Absolutely. And based on what we've said on this podcast, Tank Dell needs the ball more. Dalton Schultz needs the ball more. Damian Pierce needs the ball more. They better control the ball.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so that's our pregame 6-pack. John, we always finish up the 6-pack before we do for real or Fugazis with our prediction on the game. The Colts are a 1-point favorite as of this recording here on Thursday late morning. What says the general, John? What do you say?
Yeah, I'm going with low scoring and boring 16-13 Texans.
16-13. Okay, so 16-13.
And you were close last week. So I can't wait to hear your prediction.
Yep. Yeah, I said 24-10 Ravens. It was 25-9 Ravens. A scoregami. They'd never been. If I'd predicted 25-9, I'd have been predicting a score that had never happened in the history of the National Football League. My score that I have the Texans winning also, John. 23-17 is my final score for this game. I do think at home they're going to get a little bit of momentum going offensively. My 23 comes from a couple of touchdowns and then probably a few trips to the red zone where we see some rookie things happen and they kick a few field goals in this game. So 23-17 Texans is my final score for this game.
And the Texans sure hope we're both right, especially you, because 23.
All right, so it is time. We've got our predictions. We both are picking the Texans. John 16-13 and me 23-17. And now it's time. This segment, I know everybody loves this. A little for real or Fugazi. We got you ready for the Texans game. We'll get you ready by addressing some of the other storylines around the league in a week one that was flush with storylines for sure. It's what's great about the NFL, man. It's the greatest episodic television on the face of the earth. So, John, let's do this. Let's do this for real or Fugazi. For those who don't know how this works, because we're getting new listeners all the time to the podcast, I read a sentence as if it is fact, and John McClain reacts to it. Either he agrees with it by saying that is for real and explains why, or if he thinks what I just said is silly, he says Fugazi in that great Waco Italian accent that he's got right there. And then explains why I'm off my rocker with what I just said. So let's get it going, John. I got a few for real or Fugazis. And we started off with C.J. Stroud. Last week, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and Bryce Young all made their NFL debuts. For real or Fugazi, C.J. Stroud had the best week of any of the rookie quarterbacks.
Fugazi. Anthony Richardson had the best week because he had higher completion percentage. He threw for a touchdown. He ran for a touchdown. And C.J. Stroud, even though he played well, he did not have any touchdowns rushing or receiving. And Bryce Young was last because he had the lowest rating and he threw 2 interceptions.
Bryce was bad, John. Did you watch? I know you rewatch a lot of these games like I do. I like the condensed version. I just went back and watched the condensed version of the Colts and the Panthers, but just only the offensive snaps, not the defensive snaps. Boy, Bryce Young, 1 game in. Yikes. Eek.
One of the things they worried about, Sean, was him throwing the ball over the middle because you have to throw between the linemen, not over them. And he had 2 interceptions throwing over the middle. And they're wondering, does he have problems? But it's only 1 game. I think these guys, they get a free pass for a year.
All right. Next one. This goes back to something you and I were talking about when we were previewing the game. But the Texans are 0-1. If they win this game, then they will be 1-1. And even if the Jags win against the Chiefs this weekend, John, the winner of that game in week 3 would be in first place because the Texans would have the head-to-head win over the Jags. So, John, a win by the Texans this weekend at NRG Stadium, for real or Fugazi, it would set up the most relevant football game for the Texans in week 3 since the 2020 opener against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, sure. Why not? They would be playing for first place.
I was hoping you would say Fugazi, and then I wanted you to name the more relevant game that they will have played the last 2 years.
If the Jaguars lose to the Chiefs, which of course is possible, then they could be playing for sole possession.
Sole possession.
Yep. So, yeah, that would be a lot of intrigue. And even if they win this game and the Jaguars are 2-0, then they get to play for a share of first place and have the first tiebreaker. So I think you're right. It's a for real.
It's a for real. Yeah, it's a relevant game. People would be talking about that game going into week 3, especially if the Texans come out and make a statement on Sunday. Like if the Colts come here, the Colts were ahead of the Jags in the 4th quarter of that game. And then, then they started making mistakes. I mean, if the Colts come here and the Texans put one on them, they win, 24-6 or something like that. I think that would get a lot of people's attention. And I think people around the league that cover the league want to root for DeMeco Ryans. Everybody loves DeMeco Ryans. So
everybody does. Yes, You're right. But man, I hope we're not sitting there next week talking about the possibility of being 0-3.
Oh, John, there's a really good chance we will be. This is still the Houston
odds makers say we will be.
That's right. Okay, last one on the Texans, and we'll get to a couple general NFL, and I got an Astros one in here too. It looks like Jalen Petrie and Jimmy Ward are going to be out for at least another week. But for 1 week, the Texans, they can weather the storm without their 2 starting safeties. For real or Fugazi?
I think it's a for real. These guys got experience. Stewart had a fumble recovery, and I believe that they're capable of doing that. Anthony Richardson is not going to throw the ball a lot very accurately, even though his percentage was better than it was last year at Florida. I don't think he's going to beat them throwing the ball. If he beats them, it's going to have to be running. So I think they can get by.
Yeah, I think so too for 1 week. Now, if they're out against Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk and all Zay Jones and all those guys, that's Evan Ingram, that becomes Travis Etienne out of the backfield. That becomes a problem if you're missing both of those guys. If you could get one of them back, John, who would it be?
Well, You know who it would
I
be?
just want to hear you say it, John. That's
It
all.
would be Jalen Petrie, Sick 'em Bears.
I knew it. All right. Next one, John. Biggest story in the NFL this week, as we know, is Aaron Rodgers going out with a torn Achilles. His season is over. For real or Fugazi, the Jets can still make the playoffs with Zach Wilson at quarterback.
I think that's a for real. Last year when Breece Hall, their rookie running back, went out for the year, they were 5-2 with Zach Wilson. Now it's a tough division. All they'll want Wilson to do is not turn the ball over. But I hope that while Rodgers is rehabbing, he does it at the Jets facility, and he's on the sideline at practice, sideline at games, doing everything he can to help Wilson and whoever they bring in as their veteran backup to go with Tim Boyle. But I think they definitely can. We've seen teams rally before. Now, I'm not going to say this is happening, but when Trent Green went out for the Rams in 1999, everybody was running a list of quarterbacks they could sign or trade for. And when Dick Vermeil stuck with that nobody grocery store clerk, Kurt Warner, who'd been in NFL Europe and a low man on the totem pole in Green Bay, everybody's, what in the world is the matter with Dick Vermeil? He's lost his marbles.
John, I want Aaron Rodgers to go back to Malibu and rehab and not be anywhere near the Jets because that's way better for content. Aaron, this new well-adjusted Aaron Rodgers has not been nearly as much fun to cover as a sports talk radio host as the malcontent that he was the last several months in Green Bay. It's an easier putt.
Sean, he's going to have to become an NFL analyst because he's going to be on a Pat McAfee show every week, as is J.J. Watt.
Yeah.
So I guess he's going to come on and talk about the Jets, but they're going to ask him a lot about the NFL. So since he's not playing, he's going to have to keep a close eye on everybody else. Now, maybe after his surgery, he'll just retreat to the darkness.
JJ was on today and had a lot of nice things to say about Will Anderson on there, on the Pat McAfee show. So I'm anxious I only heard about it. I didn't hear it firsthand. But I'm anxious to go check that out. All right. A couple more, John. It's been, I would say, for Ryan Presley of the Astros, it's been not as great a season as he's had in the past, just purely, he's got a bunch of saves, 30 saves, I believe. His ERA is higher, notably higher than it's been in recent years. Simple one, for real or Fugazi. Ryan Presley cannot be trusted right now.
Oh, that's for real. He can't. He had a chance to save a no-hitter. With one out in the ninth, and he gave up 2 runs. He was terrible. Right now, Brian Abreu hadn't allowed a run in 15 games. But Dusty Baker loves veterans, and we've said before, we're afraid that he put Christian Javier in the playoff rotation, even though he doesn't deserve it because of what he's done in the past. Maldi's going to be catching. And Presley, no way they're going to Abreu, but right now he's really struggling. And a lot of the people who like the Astros as fans or media think, well, once they get in the playoffs, everything will be fine. I hope they're right, but I'll believe it when I say it.
You more worried about the hitting or the pitching?
Pitching, starting pitching.
Yeah.
Verlander got lit up by the A's, a AAA team. And Fromber pitched better. He was a victim of no hitting, and he could have won that game. Should have probably won that game. It was just disgusting how bad the hitters were in those first 2 games.
I am most worried that this year Dusty is going to be asked to make a lot of decisions when it comes to pitching. Whereas, the pitching was so good last year. You knew who the 4 starters were going to be. He had to make no decisions with the rotation. It was Verlander, Fromber, Javier, McCullers. That was it. Now, McCullers didn't pitch real well in the postseason, but nobody was complaining that he was their 4th starter last year. Garcia and Urquidy were in mothballs the entire postseason because he didn't need them, because those guys all got you to the 6th inning, and then you plug in Neris and Abreu and Presley. It was Montero at sometimes last year. All right, John, last for real or Fugazi, and it's weather related here in Houston. For real or Fugazi, this is the happiest you've been to see rain ever in your whole life.
Absolutely. That's a for real.
Yeah.
I was outside before we came on to record on Thursday, and it started raining, and I walked around in it. Didn't care if I got wet, and hope it happens more because it's been a long time. I've been in Houston since 1976. This is a record of highs. Everything has been so hot. I think everybody welcomes rain. Now we'll probably get it in droves and have mass flooding. But I think at this point, everybody in Houston should be outside dancing in the rain.
For real or Fugazi, you dance shirtless in the rain when you do it.
Oh, that is Fugazi. I don't do
good.
shirtless. I was lucky to have sometimes I think I shouldn't even take my shirt off in the shower.
Oh, come on, John. Come on. You're an Adonis. Soda weight loss, baby. All right. So that's our For Real or Fugazis for this week. I just wanted to get that last one in there, John, because there weren't many Fugazis this week. I just wanted to hear you say Fugazi again. So
Fugazi.
I had a feeling you didn't dance around shirtless outside, so I knew that would be a Fugazi. All right. John, what do you got going on your various platforms?
I have, besides our Houtopia football podcast, of which we do 3, I also have a column on Anthony Richardson and C.J. Stroud, close friends, except for Sunday. And then in the last game of the season at Lucas Oil Stadium, they've been buddies since high school. I've got one on the Astros. I have one on the Texans offensive line, which looks like it's not going to be without George Fant. And until Titus Howard and Juice Scruggs get back, I'm wondering if maybe Jarrett Patterson, who did a good job at centers for the first time, might end up being the left guard.
Maybe. Yeah. John, this we know. He is a highly intelligent football player.
Absolutely. Where did he go to college? I forgot.
A small parochial school in northern Indiana called the University of Notre Dame du Lac. Yes.
Did I ever tell you?
We got Central Michigan this weekend, John.
We went to Baylor Notre Dame game.
Yeah.
We flew up there. We took a train from Chicago with a Baylor group to South Bend.
Yep.
And a good friend of mine, TJ Simers, longtime writer in LA, said you have to go to this place because where the Notre Dame band starts, and you can get in the band and you can march across campus with the band. So I went there, and we had been doing a lot of drinking. And so I got in the band as it was marching across campus and tried to call people to tell them what I was doing. And of course they couldn't hear it. And of course, Carol didn't take any pictures. Did you ever do that while you were there?
No, I was too busy out in the parking lot getting shit-faced.
Well, I was hammered. I can't remember much. And I often wondered, did TJ tell me that because nobody does it? Is that a tradition?
Dude, that might have been a rib on you right there that he was playing.
I wondered because I was the only one. But now that I got you here, he told me, oh, yeah, it's a tradition. Just get in there.
How long ago was this? It had to be in the age of cell phones because you said you were trying to call, right?
Yeah, I had a cell phone. I was trying to call people. I can't remember. It was 20 years ago, but it was a lot of fun. I might be the only person that can say I marched across campus with the Notre Dame band as it was getting close to the stadium.
You should have just gone full leprechaun, John. Like just worn the knickers, the green short pants there, and the long coat with the long Willy Wonka tail on it, and the hat. And you should have gone full leprechaun, John.
I think I was shirtless back then.
Yeah, see, it used to happen. You used to be an Adonis, though. All kidding aside, I've seen the pictures. You back in the day. The slender John McClain. You're pretty slender now, though, John.
Maybe I'll show him on the podcast sometime.
There you go. Okay, yeah, that's what we'll do. After the season's over, we got a little downtime. We'll do a This Is Your Life, John McClain. The various shapes and sizes of John McClain through the years. Good stuff. I think was that Baylor team, I believe, was Dave Roberts the coach of that team, I believe?
That sounds like it. It sounds like Roberts. So he would have scheduled that game.
Yeah, because he was on the staff at Notre Dame at one point. So that was probably part of that. Good stuff. All right, so you got a lot of stuff going on, sportsradio610.com. That's where you can find John. A couple things here, a little bit of administrative stuff. If you are new to the podcast and you want to make sure that you get it without having to really work all that hard, click the subscribe button. Wherever it is you're getting it, Audacy App, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast, click that subscribe button. That ensures that you're going to get this podcast on a timely basis. And we appreciate you giving us a review. We definitely appreciate you telling a friend so that we can continue to grow this thing. And man, if the Texans are able to pull off the win this Sunday, it starts to get pretty exciting around here, at least for the next few weeks. And then we'll see where that all goes. Big thanks to our producer, James Jackson, who gets his podcast out to each of you, does all the fancy graphics that you're seeing at the bottom here, and keeps John and I in line. So, James, we thank you for that. So, for James and for John, I am Sean. We are out of time. We will see you next Sunday evening. We'll be doing the podcast right after the Texans and Colts game, giving our immediate reaction to what we just saw on the field during the day on Sunday. So be ready for that on Sunday. We appreciate all of you tuning in. Thanks very much. Have a great weekend. Adios. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.